Well, it's a great day. My name is Shay Brown, the happy entrepreneur, and welcome to the Happy Entrepreneur Show, the number one business development and revenue focused late night show in the country where we're on a mission. And our mission is to empower, our mission is to inspire, and our mission is to provide you, the entrepreneur, with all of the resources that are necessary to execute that big vision you have for the people you were called to serve. So today we have another expert. His name is Paul Vann, and he's aboard today to talk about leadership and influence. Now, sounds like an oxymoron to me, by the way. I think it's leadership through influence. So we're going to ask him about that. But here's what I know about Paul, and you can go Google him. But one, he's someone that started with a teacher telling him, no, you shouldn't go to college. And he went on this endeavor. And I wish I had time to go into the deep dive story, but just know he went on to pursue an education in spite of his guidance counselor saying, you're not college material. Thank God for HBCUs, where he went to Shaw University. Thank God for those that served in the military. He had a chance to serve in the military and even improve his skills, and then go back and get an MBA, I believe, from Central Michigan University, which is super incredible. But here's what I want you to know about him. He's someone with a heart to give, a heart to serve, and to help leaders become better leaders so they can accomplish the results they want. So let me start by asking you, if I can, Paul, and welcome to the Happy Entrepreneur Show, and that is leadership. What does that even mean anymore? I mean, it means different things to different people. So what is your definition of leadership, and then how do you connect those two together?
Yes. And Shay, thank you so much for being on the Happy Entrepreneur Show here today. And a great question. Leadership in and of itself is all about directing oneself. We have to start with self. And once we all have a life to lead, it also filters out to different of our life, such as our professional life or as an entrepreneur. So leadership is all about having a type of mindset that we don't want the norm, but we want the exceptional in our lives. And when we add and connect the dots with influence, it's that you are a leader, Shay, and you have people who work on your staff or you collaborate with, and you want to be able to have that type of influence on them where they do things not because you're forcing them to do it, because they believe in you so much in your vision that they want to do it on their own. You don't even have to tell them, you don't even have to look after them, but they're going to lead because it's the right thing to do.
You know, folks have heard the word leadership, leading other folks, and some folks have been in leadership positions their whole life. And I guess the number one question I have on my mind right now, and maybe on the mind of you watching and listening right now, is why do people struggle to be great leaders? Like, and I'm being dead serious here. I know you might say, Shay, that sounds crazy. No, I'm serious. And I think Paul's the right person to answer that. What is the biggest challenge? I'll frame it that way, facing leaders really being great leaders to get the results they want, because it seems pretty easy. I'm nice to people nice to me. I listen to them, they listen to me, and everything goes on. I don't have to do any work, but that's not the case. Break it down. What's the challenges facing leaders becoming great leaders today?
Well, Shay, another great question. And the struggle for some people is that they forget that they are leaders. For example, I always use the three-legged stool approach, and the three-legged stool includes an individual who happens to be the leader with the title. For example, it might be a CEO or executive vice president, executive director of a nonprofit, as an example. And then he leads a manager who is also happens to be a leader, but they don't know it because no one ever tells them that. And then there's the employee. The employee is also a leader in their own right because they're the individuals who provide the productivity. They may have try to work on an increase in sales and marketing and overall output for an organization. So I think what most people don't realize is that they're interconnected. And leaders sometimes forget, and again, it takes into account the leadership style of the individual. An influential leader is not concerned about who gets the credit. They have good character and they want their employees to succeed. And then you might have an autocratic leader, an authoritarian leader, and they demand things. And I just recently read where there's an Air Force two-star general that has been released from duty because of misconduct, or another military, a colonel, who has been released because he created a toxic work environment. And so these are people who did not respect their managers who are leaders or their employees and personnel who are leaders. And so leaders have to get back to the center. And the center is we need to stop managing. We need to do more leading. I have a great quote from one of my leadership schools. I went to Squadron Officer School in Montgomery, Alabama, and her name was Admiral Grace Harper. And what she said is, we have managed people way too long, but we haven't led them enough. What we should do is manage things and resources, but lead people. And I think that goes directly back to the question that you asked. We really need to get back to leading and people understanding that most employees don't realize that they're in a leadership position. I worked at UPS for 3.5 years of college in Raleigh, North Carolina, and that's the way I paid for college. But I was a leader because I had to work as a sorter of the packages. I had to work with a loader of the truck and then also take care of the manager, the person who managed me in his leadership position. And so we all had to work together. And that's really what leadership is all about, is building that team for collaboration, having that type of teamwork where you really make that dream work. And that's what we are today. We really need to get back to leading and less managing.
Well, that leads to the question, an old age question, but I'd like to get your perspective on it because this is what you do. And the question is, are leaders made or are leaders born? Now, Shay, why would you ask that question to him? Because he has a unique perspective. And wouldn't you want to know which one he believes? And if they are born, the second part to that question, which he can handle, is how do they get better? And if they aren't born a leader, what's one or two or three things he would say, you know what, if you weren't born this way, here are 3 skills you can acquire that you then can become a more powerful and more effective leader.
Yes. Well, Shay, I tell you, that is my favorite topic. Is there such a thing as a born leader? You know, we have some quarterbacks out here who won 7 Super Bowls, and they say, oh, he is a born leader. I'm not going to call his name because I respect him. And then we have some people who talk about it, a politician. Wow, he can really speak. He's a born leader, or she's a born leader. And what I want to say to everyone about there being a born leader, it's a myth. And part of what I do is demystify that myth because it doesn't exist. For example, let's say I played high school football in my hometown in Henderson, North Carolina. And every day I worked out with 2 quarterbacks. I was a defensive player, but they were on the field too. And I never saw anyone call them a born leader. And you know why? Because they had to go out and do the hard work. They had to exercise like I did, lift weights. They have to go through the plays to practice and scrimmage. Then we have to go over who the opponent is for the following week. So leaders are not born, rather they're developed, and they're developed over time. So how do we develop leaders over time? Well, here's one way. One way is that we have continuous study of other leaders. For example, when I was in the military, I was a military officer, and I was walking down the hall one day in the Pentagon, and there was this, I was blinded by the light, Shay. In other words, General Colin Powell was walking down the hall, and all of those stars on his shoulder just blinded me. But I spoke to him and I kept going. But you model a type of leader. So that's the best way to look at it. And then the second way is one needs to be put into a leadership position. In other words, you don't have to necessarily get leadership experience at work. You can get it working for a nonprofit, some organizations that you're passionate with. And doing that will also help. And then lastly, the last thing a person can do to actually go through a leadership training or a leadership development workshop or seminars. But there are many, many ways to develop a speaker over time, but there are no born leaders.
Tell us about your book, Paul. One of the things that I admire, now I love what you just said about you got to put the work in, right? Said so well, because even if you was born a leader, you're not born a great leader, right? Yes, great examples. There's a guy that plays basketball now, is in his 20th year, or 18th year. I can't remember which one he is right now. And yes, he's great. But what about him spending $1 million a year on his body to be in the position that he's in now? Total incredible. So I love your stories, love your comparison. You've got a book you've written, you've got a
Yeah.
book coming out. So take a moment, if you would, and tell us about the book that's written, and then the
Sure.
one that you have coming up soon, because it's going to be exciting. I know it's not released yet, but we're
Yeah.
behind the scenes, lady. He's going to peel back the big black curtain. You'll get his little secrets in a second. But take it away.
Sure, and thank you for asking. I started writing my first book in 2015, a book called uh, Living on Higher Ground. It was a motivational book about my life, but it was an empowerment book as well. And so I wrote this book, and my book coach at that time was a lady by the name of Dottie Walters, the late, great Dottie Walters, who wrote the book Speak and Grow Rich. And I went to her a marketing symposium out in Burbank, California, and I sat beside Lou Ferrigno, the Incredible Hulk, and many other celebrities that were out there. And so when I got back on the plane, I drove out of Los Angeles to Long Beach. I took the flight back to Dulles Airport. I said, hey, I'm going to write me a book in a month. And in 30 days, I actually had written 2 books. And so that book is a book about my life and then how we can be empowered through life. My second book is called Faith for Times Like Now, and it was a spiritual based book. And that book was really came as a result of me walking around the track one day, and the quiet voice inside said, hey, I want you to write this book. I said, okay, I've never written a book like that, but I wrote it. So I wrote this book. It's a 21-day manual for people who want to increase their faith. And I say, walk by faith and not by sight. And so my third solo book is titled Leadership as Influence. And in this book, I talk to people and provide them with a 3-pronged approach to becoming a leader of influence. Because to me, leadership is really where the rubber meets the road. In other words, there are a lot of different assets, knowledge, skills, and abilities people can have, but the one that separates them is the one with leadership. So if an employee comes into a company and is hired into a company, even a new employee, they should ask a lot of questions about what direction is this company going in, who were the previous leaders, what was the revenue, and how did the revenue match up with the leader of the company at that time, the leader with the title. And by writing this book is really going to help accelerate what people do, whether they are new hire or if they've been working for quite a few years for a company. It can help accelerate it. And even the leader with the title can learn a thing or two as well.
If I'm listening, I'm thinking, wow, what if I can jump into the mind of Paul, right? And as you were talking about your book and the book that you've written, the book that's coming out, I started thinking, wow, I wonder what's one lesson that he's learned from one of his mentors along this journey of life. And I know you've had so many, so it's almost unfair to ask the question, but we're going to ask it anyway. So, what's one lesson that you've learned and said, you know what, Shay, from this individual, you can mention a name or not mention a name. I picked up this lesson. I picked up this skill, and I'm going to take that lesson and skill, and I'm going to pay it forward to your audience. And you at home, you listening on your walk on your phone, you that right now is tuned into this podcast or maybe watching this video, you will benefit as well from the mentor that Paul had along his journey. So, Paul, pick one. I know it's difficult, but pick someone, and please frame the conversation so we can benefit from your mentor too.
Well, I tell you, I have a lot of good choices, but I'm going to go with both of my parents, and I'm going to tell you why. When I was 10 years old, my parents are both 2 factory workers. My mother worked for a tobacco company for 28 years, my dad for 27. So that's 55 years of working. And at the age of 10, they went with a side hustle. But at that time, when I was 10, there was no such word as a side hustle. But they started this grocery store called Vann's Groceries and Seafood Market. And at the age of 10, I stood in line with my other sister and brothers, and they said, Paul, you're being selected to work in the store after school. And so at the age of 10, I started working in my family's grocery store. And so what I learned from them was a strong work ethic. I learned how to work hard. I learned how to stock the shelves, do my due diligence at the cash register. And then I met with vendors, people who delivered the milk, the bread, the ice cream, the fresh fruit and vegetables, and the seafood every Thursday, of which I had to clean, which I didn't eat fish for many years. And so what happened, the words that come to mind is that if you want anything in life, and this is coming from both my parents, you're going to have to come up with a philosophy. And here's my parents' philosophy. You're going to Go to the sanctuary every Sunday and pray to the God that created you. Check number one. Pass that. Number two, you're going to go to school and you're going to have good grades. Check number three. Number three is you are going to have self respect and respect your elders. Check again. And I took that philosophy, and that's the same philosophy I share with my two Generation Z children today. And it's working for them too. And so I would say my philosophy is to believe in something greater than yourself, which is God. Number two, what you want to do is acquire as much knowledge as you can, and that's the education piece. And then number three, have self-respect. We're in a world where people are not respecting people at all. I don't care what industry, people are not respecting, but we need to get back to that, because if we don't, we're going to destroy one another. And we don't want that to happen. In fact, I don't believe it's going to happen, because we already have the victory. All we have to do is celebrate it. That's all we have to do.
I love it. All we have to do is just celebrate the victory. I
Celebrate it.
love
We
that.
have
Oh
it.
man, that's like super awesome all by itself. By the way, we're going to enter into a segment now, Paul. That's one of our most popular segments, which is today is my January 1st.
Yeah.
Today is my January 1st. It's one of our personal mantras for those folks that are listening for the very, very first time. Welcome. For those that are that are always here, we appreciate you. But today is my January 1st represents a do-over. It represents a fresh start. It represents a new beginning. And what it says is your past does not equal your future, that you don't have to wait till December 31st at 11:59 p.m. to get a new start. And so the question I'm going to ask Paul is, what was a time in his life? Because I know you're thinking, man, this guy got it all together. This guy has no problems. This guy follows his parents. I mean, who does that, by the way? And he went the long, hard way to get to where he is now. But I'm going to ask him now to step back and share maybe if he's comfortable doing that, a time where maybe he made a bad decision. Maybe he got hit with the punch he never saw coming. Maybe there was a setback in his life. And what did he do to turn that setback into a comeback so that today was his January 1st? So, Paul, the question is, when you hear those words, today is my January 1st, what do you hear? What does it mean to you?
Oh, Shay, I just absolutely love that question. You bring so much energy to it, but let me give it to you straight. I can tell you in 1975, Thanksgiving week of 1975, this tough defensive end who played football from a high school team representing my city of Henderson, North Carolina, was in the hospital. I got sick. In fact, I thought, well, my parents would take me to the hospital. I'll just maybe get some medication and come on back home. Well, Shay, I want you to know that I stayed in the hospital for an entire week. And that's not all, Shay. I lost 20 pounds in 7 days. And what,
Wow.
and what happened was during that time, it was a viral thing going around, not like COVID-19, but it was more like hepatitis. And I caught it. I don't know how I caught it, but I did. And thank God I did, because let me tell you what happened. My sister's boyfriend's mother was a doctor, so she treated me in the hospital each day. And the second day, which was Tuesday, I ended up reaching to the little desk beside the bed, and the Bible was in there. And guess what I did? I started reading the Bible from start to finish. And I want you to know, Shay, that the word of God spoke to me. And at that time, my parents didn't have any money to give me to go to college. And I was a senior at that time. And the word came to me in my spirit and said, you're going to college. Not only that, but you're going to this college and you're going to be okay. I just want you to give your life back over to God. And Shay, guess what happened?
What happened?
I gave my life over to God, and the Holy Spirit just took me from that week in the hospital. In fact, the only people who knew that I was in the hospital were my parents, my siblings, and the principal at the school. And I'm one of 10 children, by the way. I'm the oldest son. There are 5 boys, 5 girls. I'm the oldest son. And when I came home, I didn't even look the same. I mean, you could see my bones in my face. I didn't look like. In fact, my mother told me, she said, "You don't look the same." But the fact of the matter is, I wasn't the same. I went to church that Sunday, talked to our pastor, He baptized me in water. And that's the second time I've been baptized. And our parents been in the same church for 130 years, our parents and our ancestors. And I gave my life over and I started working in church, still going to school, but working in church. And I'm telling you, Shay, I had a plan for my life. God took my plan and kicked it to the curb. The next thing you know, God had me on his plan. And I went to school. I didn't have any money. And every time I ended up getting a job from a family friend my freshman year, the second year I worked in a factory for about 3 weeks. The UPS called me. I worked for them for 3.5 years of college. And then in my junior year, I went to basic training camp at Dover, Delaware. I learned how to march, I learned Air Force history, survival training. I'd never flown on a plane before. I flew on a C-5, which is the length of a football field. We flew over Bermuda and I got sick. I was so nervous. And then 2 weeks later, Shay, we were flown to Columbus, Mississippi for what they call flight orientation. And I flew a Air Force jet with an instructor pilot up to about 10,000 feet. And then I took the stick, which is like the steering wheel in the jet aircraft. And we did wheelbarrows, turning the plane over and everything. It was amazing. And I joined ROTC when I went back to school that fall. And so what I want to say is my January the 1st, what I thought was a setback was actually a setup for a comeback. Compliments of the Trinity of the Holy Spirit.
It's always great to know that you have comeback power. You look at home, one thing he's telling you is you've got comeback power. You know, that's, hey, I love it. If you're still breathing, then you're still in the game, shorty. You're still here. You've already came. If you woke up this morning, you've already come back.
Yeah.
You know, one thing I admire about Paul is I had a chance to connect with him maybe about 10 years ago. And he's not the same today. He's better today than he was 10 years ago. He was amazing. He was incredible. I remember when he was giving his presentation. And this was 10 years ago. And the wealth of knowledge, the experience that he's gained, to be able to compound that, puts him well beyond an expert, puts him well beyond the best in his field. It puts him not only as a thought leader, but as someone out there that's a maverick right now and is making a difference in the area of leadership through influence. At the end of the day, isn't that what we're all about? You're a leader of one before you're a leader of many. I'm going to ask Paul if he can, before he tells you what's next and how to best connect with him, I want him to share with you an idea for those folks that are a leader in their home, right? You might say, hey, Shay, at the office, I'm not that guy, okay? And you're okay with that. But your family is dependent on you. You're a leader in your home. Maybe in the community, you're a leader in the community. Maybe you're part of an organization and you're like, well, I'm not the head honcho, but I do what I do the best I can. I'm going to ask them to share maybe an idea that you can use and any leader could apply it, but I want you to listen with new ears right now and watch with new eyes as he shares something that you can take away and you can use as like Shay Brown, the everyday person, right? This pays their taxes, gets up every single day, wants to make an impact, and wants to be a better leader of one of themselves first. So Paul, what's your secret to, and I'll frame it like this so you can answer it directly, discipline. I think it all boils down to discipline. What's your definition of discipline, and how can a leader have more discipline in any area of their life?
Well, really great question. And when it comes to discipline, it also the connectivity with leadership. But if we are to lead our own lives, we need to look at ourselves. Don't compare ourselves to anyone else, because our only competition is us, we, me, and I. When we look in the mirror in the morning, that's our competition. So we want to be better with each following day, each upcoming day. We want to be good today, but tomorrow we want to be even better. And the way that we do this is to make an assessment of what we really love. Do we love ourselves? We've got to love ourselves. We can't love ourselves. We can't love anyone else. That's number one. So we got to have some self-care. We have to have mind, body, spirit, and soul, that we have them all connected and working as one. And at that point, whether we have children or not, we have friends, we have colleagues, and we have peers, that if there's going to be change, it must start with me. It must start with we. And that's how we move forward. So when it comes down to that discipline, is that we have to ensure that we listen to ourselves and that we have good, healthy conversations with ourselves. I know my grandmother used to say, she said, Paul, do you think that I'm odd that I talk to myself? I said, no, grandmother, because I'm down here getting this wisdom that you're sharing with me. And so it's very important for us to talk to ourselves. It doesn't mean that we're crazy. It means that we're thinking out loud. That's all that it means. But we can reach deep down in our soul and we can find the fire in our belly to get up each day. You know, somebody right now, Shay, or this morning did not wake up. You know, they had the final call. We want to be able to stay healthy. When the new year started this year, my main concern was we've been through COVID for the last 2.5 years. I need to be healthy. I need to be wealthy. And wealth doesn't necessarily mean money, but as Zig Ziglar say, if you can get it, get it. and so we want to be healthy, we want to be wealthy, and we want to be wise because how we think is so important. If we have positive thoughts, we get to kick the negative committee out. And if there are people in our lives who are negative, we want to move away from them. And we want to have positivity at the center of everything we do. And we want to have that discipline so that we can lead our lives. And that's why I say everyone is a leader, because we all have a life to lead. And some people lead their lives better than some others.
You know, first I want to say thanks so much, Paul, for being on the Happy Entrepreneur Show. You're amazing. Yes. You're incredible. A really kind human being that's making a huge impact in the world. So I want to close with two questions to allow you to do. One is let folks know how they can best connect with you. And so if you have a free giveaway or something you want to give the audience, you're welcome to do that now as well. And then number two, when it all comes to an end, right? And I'll say an end when we get our heavenly wings and our time here is up. How do you want people to remember Paul Vann?
Oh, great question. And I'll give that contact information last. But I want people to remember me for having given it all. I turned over every rock that I can find and look under to find out, can I learn something from this? Can I learn something from that? The people, the way we really learn really is from other people when we first start out in life. And if we are not lifelong learners, then our life is coming to an end. And so I want people to remember me that I did serve my country. I gave them over 20 years of duty in the United States Air Force, and I'm thankful for that. In addition to a year on Capitol Hill working for a member of Congress, and I want to be known as a servant leader, and I also want to be known for leaving a deposit in the earth for my family, that when I leave here, that they will have something that I left them so they don't have to work as hard and wonder how they're going to make it in my absence. They're going to be fine. And then lastly, when it comes down to when I leave this world, that I served and I served proudly, not only in the military, but in the community as well, working as being a member of Kappa Alpha Psi fraternity, and then also through the different properties that I have, such as the podcast and I have 6 books total, 3 that are co-authored and 3 that are authored. So I'll still have some something out here on my life, even in my absence. And the best way people can get in touch with me, especially just from the speaking standpoint, just go to my website, which is www.paullawrencevann.com. And you'll be able to learn more about me there. And then I would love to give you a free 30-minute coaching session on leadership or other aspects of life. And you can join me on a free session. Just send me an email at info, the @ Paul, Paul, Vann, Vann, speaks, speaks.com. And I'd love to entertain any questions or any comments that you have. But thank you so much, Shay, for inviting me as your guest on this amazing podcast.
Well, you know, this is the podcast to be on. I love what you said, man. Thanks for what you're doing. Of course, you're a member of the greatest fraternity on this planet, Kappa Alpha Psi. So obviously, from one noob to another, I had to have the brother on here. I had to let him bring that up. You know, I couldn't bring that up. You know, brother, Phi noob. I know you're like, Shay, why are you still doing that? Because it's true. It hasn't changed in all these years. So it's always a pleasure to be on the other side, man. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep making a difference. The world needs you. And for you out there watching, thanks for tuning in to the Happy Entrepreneur Show. I want you to know you're amazing, you're incredible, and for you, your best is still yet to come. Isn't that good news? Your best is still yet to come, because today, when we leave, is your January 1st. You're a leader. I'm out. Thanks a lot, bro. I'll talk to you later. Peace. Bye.